Hey everybody, Zach Wolf here with another great Top 5 Tuesday. This week, of course, Top 5 Tuesday is coming to you from my satellite office here in the Woodlands, Texas. Like most of you, I'm working at home and just trying to make the best of it, but Top 5 Tuesday will not be stopped, and this week I have the top 5 tips for lawyers handling hearings via Zoom. I had my first Zoom hearing just this past week, and after that first experience, I've got a few tips that hopefully will help you when you have a hearing by Zoom or whatever video conference program you may be using. Tip number 5 is don't interrupt. Now, that's probably good advice for any kind of hearing in court, but I think it's especially important for a Zoom hearing because interruptions are even more annoying when they're on a video conference. Of course, there are some occasions when you have to interrupt. For example, if the opposing attorney is offering evidence and if you need to object to the evidence, well then of course you have to interrupt. Other than that, I don't see too many occasions when it's appropriate to interrupt during a hearing. Now, it can be really hard when the opposing attorney is misstating the law or misstating the facts or misstating your position, and it's so hard to sit there and not interrupt and say, "You lie!" That's not our position. But usually the better thing to do is sit there and wait, and you can make your point when it's your turn to argue. So don't interrupt. My number 4 tip for hearings by Zoom is to use the share screen feature. This is great because you can share your screen and show documents that you have pulled up on your screen, and it's a great way to focus the judge's attention on a document you want to emphasize. Of course, that's something that you can do in the courtroom, whether it's by handing the document to the judge or by using the courtroom technology and showing it and the judge sees it on a computer screen. But those in-person hearings sometimes make it more cumbersome to do that. When it's on Zoom, it's so easy. And the judge is already focused on a screen, so it's not hard to get the judge to look at a document that you put on the screen. And that can be a really effective tool for your argument. Number 3, if you're going to use the share screen feature in your Zoom hearing, be careful. Think about the fact that everybody's going to see what's on your screen. So number 1, you want to make sure that there is no confidential client information that you don't want to reveal either to the court or to your adversary. And number 2, make sure there is no embarrassing personal information showing on your screen. I'll leave it to your imagination what that might be. But just be prepared ahead of time. Look at your screen. Think about what's going to show up on your screen. And here's one particular tip. If you're sharing your screen, don't maximize and bring up your Outlook inbox inadvertently. Who knows what emails you may have received during that hearing that you wouldn't want to show up for everyone to see. My number 2 tip for Zoom hearings is to consider using a PowerPoint presentation as part of your Zoom hearing. Of course, PowerPoint has been around a long time, and a lot of lawyers love PowerPoint. We love those bullet points, and a lot of lawyers will use that in the courtroom, sometimes effectively, sometimes not so effectively. So I'm not convinced that you should always use a PowerPoint presentation in a Zoom hearing. I submit that in many cases, it would be more effective to pick your 3 to 5 most important documents, whether those are pieces of evidence or maybe cases that you want to show the judge. Pick those best documents and just have those documents ready to show the judge. In a lot of cases, I think that can be just as effective as a PowerPoint presentation, and it may be easier to jump back and forth between the key documents as you're making your argument. Whereas PowerPoint tends to be a little more linear, going from one slide to the next. And unless you know your PowerPoint presentation really well, it may take some fumbling around to go back to a slide that you talked about earlier. Finally, my number one tip for lawyers doing Zoom hearings is consider leading with the best part of your best document. Maybe that sounds kind of obvious, but that's not what most lawyers typically do. A lot of lawyers will lead off with too much exposition. Of course, sometimes you're going to have to do a little exposition because you need to explain to the court what the case is about and what the arguments are and the argument you're making and who you represent and things like that. So sure, you may need to do a little of that. But I find it can be very effective if you take the best document you've got, whether that's a case where you're citing language from the case that supports your position, or it might be an exhibit with the key language that supports your case. That tends to immediately focus the argument on your strong points, and I think that can be more effective than leading off with a bunch of background information. So those are my top 5 tips for lawyers handling hearings by Zoom. Oh, and guess what? That number 1 tip, that also works for in-person hearings. But I think it can be even more important in a Zoom hearing. Do you agree, disagree? Hey, hit the like button if you like the video, leave me a comment, share this video with a friend, and hey, thanks for watching.